Tom, what do you make of what Poilievre is saying there? And is there any chance that Singh pulls out of this deal and forces an election?
Welcome back to Moose on the Loose. My name's David, and today's top stories, we've got Jagmeet Singh gets absolutely demolished by a breakfast television host. We've also got former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. He gives his take on Jagmeet Singh's situation, what's going on with Pierre Poilievre, calling out Jagmeet to call an election, as well as an update here on Canada Post, which is where we're going to start today. Canada Post is considering a 7-day work week after a $700 million loss. They're kind of getting schooled by all the other options, whether it's FedEx or Purelator, etc.
This week, Canada Post Board Chair André Hudon said significant changes urgently needed to keep the organization afloat. Some experts believe it doesn't help that the organization is the only competitor in the industry that doesn't offer weekend delivery. The Crown Corporation CEO, Doug Ettinger, said this week that they are considering moving to a 7-day-a-week delivery model, a move Lender argues against.
The idea of expanding service, it's not like it's going to create more mail. This is exactly the wrong direction for any company that's trying to survive.
Canada Post declined our request for an interview, citing it won't comment on the topic as negotiations with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers continue.
It's an interesting point. Going 7 days a week won't create more mail, it'll create better service, but, you know, if there's too many players in the space, I don't know. In today's society, we're used to getting packages delivered on Sunday from Amazon. People expect mail on Sundays now, so let me know what you guys think on this. Next up, we got this clip here from Breakfast Television where this TV host absolutely destroys Jagmeet Singh, just calls him on his crap. He's bringing up the whole grocery thing, he's doing his typical Jagmeet thing, bag of potatoes, the whole thing.
Now, federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh continues his cross-country tour in Toronto today to push for a price cap on grocery store staples if grocers can't be convinced by the Liberal government to bring down the prices themselves. He joins us live now in studio to explain. Jagmeet, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
My question to you is, how do you force corporate grocers to bring down the prices or comply with a price cap? The argument the governing Liberals have made in saying that they don't agree with this idea is that, say, the price of sugar rises globally. How can you set a price in one region?
Well, we've seen another country do it. France has already done something really similar. And our main argument is this. When you go into the grocery store and you're buying your groceries, you're spending more than ever before, and you're leaving with less than ever before. So people feel intuitively, I'm getting ripped off. And they're right. These grocery store corporations are making some of the biggest profits they've ever seen in their history. And so we're saying, well, that's unfair. And the rules have been written to let them do that. We're saying, let's change the rules and give people an advantage. Let's give people a little bit of a break. And one way to do that concretely is to put in a price cap if these corporate grocery stores don't lower the price of essential items.
There's a simple price cap Jagmeet can do here, and that's getting rid of the carbon tax, aka breaking coalition with Justin Trudeau's supply and confidence agreement with Justin Trudeau. This guy saying you can show up at the grocery store and pay more and get less is just admitting the failure of the current system.
We know they can do that. We've seen many of these corporate grocery stores have in-house brands, and they've talked about freezing those prices. They've talked about those prices coming down. So they absolutely do have control. They're making huge profits. People need a break, and so this is one way to do it.
One thing about in-house brands, that footage there was from No Frills. They have an in-house brand of fries that used to cost $2, and they had big billboards all across the grocery store that said, never above $2, always $2. And if you check it today, they're $4.
What does forcing them to do it, though, look like before you bring in that price cap? Like, does it come in the form of sanctions?
Well, the negotiation would be, you've got a chance to bring it down on your own. If you don't bring it down, we will force it by putting in a price cap.
Okay.
The price cap would then be imposed by the federal government to say you can't charge more than a certain amount for food essentials like bread or like baby formula. And we know that they have been ripping us off because very recently there was a landmark settlement where $500 million was awarded in a settlement against Loblaws for their role in the bread price fixing in a class action lawsuit.
I bet Jagmeet knows a lot about buying baby formula. He probably helps Trudeau out getting some for him. Jagmeet, go get my favorite formula.
So this is a significant penalty for the fact that they literally worked with other companies to jack up the price of bread, ripping off Canadians to the tune of $5 billion. They're finally having to pay a little bit for that. That's not enough. We know that it shouldn't come to having to go to court to get some fairness. The government should step up and protect people from these corporations that are ripping them off.
The government should step up and protect the people, Jagmeet. You should step up and break your supply and confidence agreement with Justin Trudeau. The hypocrisy of this guy.
Now, we only have a limited amount of time with you, so I do want to ask you about the Conservatives' latest attack ad. They took aim at you as a person this week rather than your policies. I'm wondering what you make of the Conservative Party's shift in attacks against the governing Liberals and onto you.
Well, I think they're nervous. They know that what we're talking about makes a lot of sense. We're going after corporate greed. We're saying that big corporations shouldn't rip you off. People are thinking that makes a lot of sense. So they're attacking me personally, which I'm used to that. I don't mind that. But they're also lying. And those lies, they know they're lying because they know the reason why we're forcing Justin Trudeau to do things is because we want to give people dental care. We want to give people pharmacare. We want to give people some dignity.
Oh, please, Rolex Robin Hood. Like, does this guy actually think we believe anything that comes out of his mouth?
And some help. And we're using our power in Parliament to fight for that. And I think they want to distract from the fact that Pierre Poilievre wants to strip that away from people. He's been very open about wanting to take away dental care. And people are now receiving it and saying, well, I don't want them to take away my dental care. That's a bad thing. So now he's trying to distract with these type of dishonest attacks. But we're going to keep on fighting for people.
With respect, though, the Liberals have lost, 20 points nationally, but your party doesn't seem to have brought in those disengaged Liberal voters. Take a look at the, Toronto-St. Paul's by-election. That recent by-election, the NDP lost vote share, even though the NDP hold it provincially. So what do you make of that?
Well, we're seeing a lot of folks across the country. I'm touring with this Change the Rules tour and seeing a lot of people excited about what we have to offer. We're seeing people now starting to get the benefits. We're seeing more and more seniors going to the dentist and getting their teeth fixed. And so people are realizing, what we fought for is actually improving their lives. And now we're saying, when we know you're getting ripped off by big corporations, we want to fight back against them to actually give you a break. The Liberals under Justin Trudeau aren't doing enough. They've let you down. They failed you. And Pierre Poilievre wants to put fuel on the fire of corporate greed. He wants to let those corporations rip you off even more. So we're offering an alternative, and we're starting to see people see that, that's a good alternative for us.
Well, the numbers suggest otherwise, though.
Well, it's going to take some time, I'm sure, but I'm hearing from folks that are saying, what? My grandparents got to get their teeth cleaned for the first time in their lives, got their teeth fixed, and that's changed their lives, and we're so thankful. And more of those folks are going to realize that we fought for them when we deliver something real. We can fight to make sure we lower the price of groceries as well.
Jagmeet Singh, thank you.
She just called out his lies right to his face, and then he tried to push back, and she just called him out again. Everyone knows Singh takes off his Rolex before going out in public. He's a sellout. This guy went to Beverly Hills private school. He's not relatable, nor knows what real life in this country is or needs to be. Next up, we got this clip here with Tom Mulcair, the former NDP leader. He's asked whether an early federal election will be called.
So let's start with a press conference held last week by Pierre Poilievre. First off, let's take a listen.
He will not quit. He must be fired. And the person to do it is Jagmeet Singh. Break the costly coalition with Trudeau to trigger a carbon tax election where Canadians can choose.
Tom, what do you make of what Poilievre is saying there? And is there any chance that Singh pulls out of this deal and forces an election?
Not the slightest. Singh's numbers, the NDP's numbers have been really plummeting since the beginning of the summer. It's very tough for them. They're being pulled apart on both ends. On the one hand, a lot of progressives are afraid of Poilievre, and they're going over to the Liberals, people who would have normally voted NDP because of their policies. But Trudeau has adopted many of those policies, so it's going to cost the NDP on that side. And on the other side, a lot of working Canadians, a lot of people who have been in the union movement, themselves, so they have always been tilting towards the NDP, but a lot of them are going over to Poilievre's Conservatives. It was interesting, Renee, not that long ago, Poilievre imposed on his caucus the idea of voting in favor of anti-scab legislation. That didn't sit well with a lot of them, but you could see that there was a game plan there. Poilievre is thinking about this. He knows that there are a lot of votes for him to get there, and working people are being hit hard by inflation. They're paying very high taxes. Trudeau will always plead that he's giving them a break and he's bringing in dental care and things like that. But those workers are saying, no, we're less well off now than we were when you came to power, and we want to get rid of you. So it's a very tough road to hoe right now for Trudeau and his team. And I think that Singh, of course, is just going to hold on as long as he can. He has no interest whatsoever in going to an election anytime soon. And he does get to point to those very social programs and say, our promise had been to get more stuff for Canadians, and we've delivered on that.
Now, let's talk about Trudeau. He is still hanging on. I want to show you another clip from this past week. The PM meeting a steel worker in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Let's take a listen to this.
The 25% tariffs we just brought in on Chinese steel to help you out.
That's going to keep my job, What about the 40% taxes I'm paying, and I don't have a doctor?
The $400 million in invest in the card means you're going to have a job for
I think you're only here for another year. We won't see you around probably another year.
Well, that's what elections are for.
That's right.
Now, Tom, that steel worker seems pretty sure that Trudeau's a lost cause. Do you see a scenario where he either quits or is replaced, or do you think he's going to be there right until the next election?
Well, that dovetails nicely with what we were just saying, isn't it? I mean, that's a steel worker. He's unionized. He's the type of person who might have been in Singh's NDP camp at one point, might have looked at the Liberals, but now he's saying, I want you gone. And he points to the fact that he is paying 40% taxes and he doesn't have access to a family doctor. Is there a scenario where Trudeau will leave? Of course, because Trudeau is a proud person. He believes he's the only person who can take on Poilievre successfully, the same way Stephen Harper believed he was the only person who could defeat Justin Trudeau back in 2015. And what happened was, of course, Harper was defeated, as was I, because I was leading the NDP at the time. And Trudeau won 3 elections in a row. And Harper, despite having won 3 elections, he had that dark cloud over the end of his career. Trudeau's going to be measuring that. He's going to be thinking about that. He's relatively young. He's got many years of work ahead of him.
We already know this because he's already mentioned this when he was asked about his age versus his dad's age, and when his dad was prime minister. And he calculated the math in that one interview. He said, I still got like 15 years until I'm, where my dad was. And he really thinks he's just going to be in power for the next 20 years, running our country into the ground and unleashing more havoc into our streets. That narcissist really thinks that was what was going to happen here. I think he's in for a wake-up call here come next year.
He'd be quite a commodity in the job market. I mean, you can just imagine any number of large corporations that would love to have him around their table. So he's going to be measuring that. Does he want to go out having won 3 elections in a row and trying to pass the torch to someone else? Or does he want to have one last battle because he believes that Poilievre represents everything that he's against and he has a chance of defeating him? The numbers just show the opposite, that he has very little chance of defeating Poilievre. Indeed, he is probably, one of the only people who can see Poilievre get elected. If the Liberals had a new leader, they might be like the Democrats in the States, have a breath of fresh air, but none of that seems to be happening right now.
Well, some people might want a slithering snake as part of their operation, their corporation or whatever, want access to Trudeau's network. Really, who wants that guy in their company? You got to be pretty low to want Justin Trudeau a part of your company, want to hire him after he's destroyed an entire country.
Very quickly, I just want to get your take on Transport Minister Pablo Rodriguez, who is still in cabinet, but speaking about running for the Quebec Liberal leadership, what could we see happening with him over the next few weeks?
Just a little extra info about this. I covered this a couple weeks ago. He was approached by the provincial team to run there, and he is kicking the tires on that. It's just another one of Trudeau's ministers potentially jumping ship here.
The image of people leaving, or animals leaving the sinking ship come to mind. I mean, Pablo Rodriguez has already signaled strongly, and there's polling that's being done for him in Quebec. He wants to take over the Quebec Liberal Party, and good luck with that, because there would be all sorts of ambushes for him there. But the very fact that he's still around Trudeau's cabinet table, how does he come back? You just mentioned it, Renee. They come back in 2 weeks on the 16th. How does Pablo Rodriguez take questions in question period with any seriousness when he's already signaled that he's got his eye on a better job for the rest of his own career? I find it an astonishing situation. He says he doesn't mind sitting between 2 chairs, but I have a feeling that Trudeau's going to have to come to a decision on this one rather quickly and find someone to replace him and maybe move a few other things in the meantime. But it's a unique political situation, one I've never seen before, quite frankly, and I think that it's a bit unseemly to have a sitting cabinet minister musing openly about going on to a better job for himself.
It is really bizarre. I mean, I would have thought Trudeau would have just tossed him out by now, but maybe there's something there we don't know about. This next segment, we've got an economist here who thinks the Bank of Canada will have a rate cut, and it's coming for sure.
Moshe Lander, economics professor at Concordia University, joins us now. Hi, Moshe. Thank you for your time.
Hello.
So let's dive straight into this conversation. What are we expecting to hear from BOC on September 4th?
Probably a cut coming for sure, Akshay. The issue now is it going to be 25 basis points, or you're even now hearing rumors that it might be 50 basis points. But there's no question, I think, that there's a cut coming.
So once the rate is announced, whether it's 25 basis point or 50, how do you see the economy reacting to it?
Well, favorably, right? It's a return to business as usual with inflation now in that 1% to 3% range that the Bank of Canada covets so much. They've accomplished that every month this year, and there's no sign that it's going to go outside of that range. So it just means that this is going to be the continuation of rate cuts. I can't imagine that the economy is going to react negatively to it. There's other news that might suggest it could react negatively too, but this will not be one of them.
Something to note about that too, when they do these interest rate cuts, they don't happen immediately. It's not like it happens tomorrow. It takes 1 to 2 years before this actually affects the entire economy. It takes time to push it through because you get things that cost less immediately tomorrow, but then that doesn't affect the next supplier or buyer or whatever it may be until a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, and that affects the next person's supply chains, and it takes a long time to filter through our entire economy. Right now, what we're feeling is the impacts of the inflation going up from 2 years ago, so we won't feel these decreases for another year or two.
Let me ask you about why do you think there is speculation between 25 and 50, and what are the factors that the governor will look at, whether it has to be 25 basis point or 50?
Well, if you remember, one of the things that we regularly talk about is that when you have interest rate changes, the effect is not instantaneous. It takes about 18 to 24 months. Same way when interest rates go up, same way when interest rates go down. So one of the things that the Bank of Canada mentioned earlier this year is that they think that they could actually see inflation falling below 2% and falling into the 1-point-something% range. And so it might be a case then where they can go aggressively on cuts. And even if it leads to a little bit of an increase in inflation 12 to 18 months out from now, it's still going to be in that 1 to 3% range. And so the thought is then that with the Canadian economy a little bit soft, like you said, GDP per person declining, maybe this is the time then that you do a little bit of an aggressive cut. And see how it plays out. You can always pause interest rate cuts at the meeting in October and December if necessary.
This would bode well for when Pierre Poilievre takes over leadership of Canada next year, because then he would be getting these benefits when he's getting elected as Prime Minister. Next up, we've got a video here where someone has cut together a mini documentary. It's on Banana Republic's X account here, and he's cut together all these Jagmeet clips with an AI voiceover of David Attenborough.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us delve into the curious case of Jagmeet Singh, a man who has positioned himself as the champion of the working class, yet parades around in the garb of the elite in the streets of Ottawa on his ugly bicycle. Here we have Jagmeet Singh, or Sellout Singh, or what some like to call him the Jagass who sings, leader of the NDP, a party historically rooted in the soil of workers' rights and social justice, now adorned in the finery of the very class he claims to oppose. He dons Rolex watches, not one, but two, as if they were badges of honor, symbols of a solidarity with the proletariat that rings hollow with every tick of the second hand. Singh, in his bespoke suits, which whisper of wealth rather than the welfare of the common man, stands before us, a paradox wrapped in hypocrisy. He speaks of fighting for the everyday Canadian, yet his attire screams of a disconnect, a man more at home in the boardrooms of luxury than the living rooms of the struggling. And let's not overlook his defense of his pension plan, a fortress he guards with the zeal of a dragon over its hoard. Here is a man who, while decrying the financial burdens on the average Canadian, ensures his own financial future is not just secure, but lavishly so. His pension, a potential 2.5 million nest egg, is not just a safety net, but a golden parachute, funded by the very taxpayers he claims to represent. The irony is thick. Singh, who critiques the government for failing on affordability while clutching a bag of, well, let's call them potatoes, yet stands shoulder to shoulder with Trudeau, not out of ideological alignment, but perhaps, one might speculate, to safeguard his own financial interests. His Rolex, his suits, his pension, these are not mere accessories, but symbols of a deeper betrayal, a sellout of principle for personal gain. So we must ask, Mr. Singh, when you speak of fighting for the working class, do you do so with the same fervor as you protect your watches, your wardrobe, your pension? Your actions paint a picture of a leader more concerned with maintaining his lifestyle than uplifting those he claims to serve. This, my friends, is not just hypocrisy. It's a mockery of the very ideals the NDP once stood for. One that makes the late Jack Layton roll in his grave with rage and disappointment. Jagmeet Singh, in his Rolex and Versace, has become the embodiment of the very system he should be challenging, effectively ruining the image of the NDP for an entire generation.
Yeah, Jack Layton would be absolutely rolling in his grave if he saw what Jagmeet Singh has done to the NDP.
As Canadians, our message to sellout Singh: resign, resign, and just in case, resign again.
So why are you continuing to prop up the government who you say isn't taking democracy seriously? Why do you continue to prop them up?
So the question is, what are we going to do about it? The question to me...
Why do you continue to prop up the government when you say our democracy is at stake and this government is not taking our democracy seriously? Why continue to back them up?
We're not at all doing that. What we're saying is we're going to demand answers. We're going to continue to push for solutions. Because we're in Parliament right now, I was able to read these documents. The suggestion that an election is a solution to election interference is, I think, a fallacy. What we need to do is use the tools we have to get to the bottom of this. I want to continue to push for more solutions.
Yeah, he's pushing for nothing but his pension. This item is sold out. Does it hurt your balls? No, I haven't got any offense here. This video is great because if you're someone who's just jumping into politics in Canada, you don't know anything about Jagmeet, this video sums him up perfectly. Jumping over to my group, let's see what memes we've got today. An advertisement on QE South. Is this thing back or is this an old post? I don't know. People aren't allowed to smoke in bars and restaurants, but Palestinians can smoke G-word bars and restaurants freely. So their smoke G-word aren't smoke or Palestinians aren't people. We just have unfair rules for them versus Canadians. That is what we have in our country right now. That's just the honest truth. Blue has never looked so good. Look at that blue wave going across Canada. So you can see all the colors of all the different parties, the seats. Obviously Conservatives just taking over. We've got like just this tiny little stronghold here of the Liberals, a little bit of downtown Ottawa and Toronto, and a little bit of Montreal. So the Liberals are getting wiped out across Canada. And so is the NDP. I don't know what's going on here in Manitoba. Unlike the stomach, the brain doesn't alert you when it's empty. So we're seeing some anti-NDP protesters here. More specifically, you can see here, these are Conservatives out. Interesting to see. Keep it up. I present to you the other Randy. The other Randy Paulson out. This is 2014 edition. A little bit smaller, extra shiny chrome dome. Will they boo and heckle me here? We've got a lot of media these days pointed at Jagmeet. I think that's because Pierre Poilievre came out and called him out. And I wonder if he's kind of setting him up here for September 16th. They go back to the House of Commons, Parliament. Is he kind of stacking up the cards here because he's going to come in with a bang? The question is now, how is Jagmeet going to defend himself when Poilievre is grilling him in the House of Commons? What is he going to have to say? Jagmeet can only keep up this charade for so long before he has to address it. At this point, I just think Canadians want to see him properly address his pension and answer that question. Do you think he ever will?